In August of 2022, my brother Kurt, my dad, and I took a bus tour to the Great Lakes area. We traveled with the Lazy K Coach Company of Burlington, Colorado. This was not our first tour with Lazy K, as the three of us traveled to Branson, Missouri with them on an earlier expedition. Dad had traveled with Lazy K on several occasions. A few of the friends we met on the Branson trip also traveled on the Great Lakes tour. A total of 37 people were on the bus, including the owner-operators Roger and Dina Karspeck, and assistants Dave and Patty Ritchie. Our trip took us through 10 states: Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri. The route covered 3,050 miles. We saw the plentiful cornfields of Nebraska and Iowa, the dairy farms of Wisconsin, the tree-lined roads of Michigan, the beautiful farms of Indiana and Illinois, and the plains of Kansas and Colorado. We made stops at Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, where we took a boat ride and explored some slot canyons. We visited waterfalls, a lighthouse, and a Shipwreck Museum in Michigan. We crossed the very long Mackinac Bridge between Upper and Lower Michigan. A ferry boat ride took us to Mackinac Island in Lake Huron. We spent time on an Amish dairy farm in Indiana. Stops in Kentucky included a visit to the Louisville Slugger Museum and Bat Factory, and Churchill Downs, home of the Kentucky Derby. We met and made new friends and had a very enjoyable 10-day tour. I rose before sunrise to make the drive to Burlington, Colorado to meet the Lazy K coach. At 6:45 a.m., we boarded the bus at the Old Town Museum and headed east toward Kansas. Additional passengers joined us in Goodland. Day one was spent on the road traveling across Kansas and Nebraska. We stopped in Kearney, Nebraska for lunch at the Alley Rose. After cruising down Interstate 80, our evening stay was at the Ameristar Casino in Council Bluffs, Iowa. These photos were taken as Dad, Kurt, and I took an evening walk. Today I met Roger and Marcia. They live about 20 miles south of where I grew up. Roger has coffee with my brother-in-law nearly every morning. The only lucky winner at the casino Sunday evening was Phyllis, and she would not share. Saturday was another day of travel as the tour took us through the beautiful rich farm country of Iowa. We saw corn, and more corn. Soybeans seemed to be the second crop of preference. I found it interesting how the farmers used the natural drainage locations to separate their plots. I enjoyed the well-manicured farms as we traveled the countryside. Late in the day, we crossed into Wisconsin. We had plans to visit the house on the rock in Spring Green. Unfortunately, due to conflicts, we were unable to make the visit. Though we missed the House on the Rock, here is a bit of info about the attraction. The House on the Rock is a tourist attraction located between the cities of Dodgeville and Spring Green, Wisconsin. Opened in 1959, it is a complex of architecturally distinct rooms, streets, gardens, and shops, designed by Alex Jordan, Jr. The house itself sits atop Deer Shelter Rock. Additions were made to the original structure and other buildings were added over the course of several decades. The complex now features the Streets of Yesterday, a recreation of an early 20th century American town, the Heritage of the Sea, featuring nautical exhibits and a 200-foot model of a fanciful whale-like sea creature, the Music of Yesterday, a huge collection of automatic music machines, and what the management bills as the world's largest indoor carousel, among other attractions. The carousel at the House on the Rock features 269 carousel animals, 182 chandeliers, over 2,000 lights, and hundreds of mannequin angels hanging from the ceiling. The carousel has no horses. Jordan sold the house in 1988 to a friend who continued building on the site, adding to the collections. The most recent additions are the Spirit of Aviation, a collection of large model airplanes in a themed room, and the Transportation Building. Our evening stay was at the Best Western Inn in Dodgeville, a small town of 4,984 people. After our stay in Dodgeville, we headed a short distance north toward our first stop of the day, Wisconsin Dells. There our group boarded a boat for a couple-hour tour of the Dells. Wisconsin Dells is a city in south-central Wisconsin with a population of 2,942 people as of the 2020 census. It straddles 4 counties, Adams, Columbia, Juneau, and Sauk. The city takes its name from the dells of the Wisconsin River, a scenic glacial-formed gorge that features sandstone formations along the banks of the Wisconsin River. Together with the nearby village of Lake Delton, the city forms an area known as the Dells, a popular Midwestern tourist destination. Wisconsin Dells is located on ancestral Ho-Chunk and Menominee land. The Ho-Chunk name for Wisconsin Dells means rocks close together. The U.S. acquired the land in treaties with the Ho-Chunk Nation in 1837 and with the Menominee in 1848. The city of Wisconsin Dells was founded in 1856 by the Wisconsin Hydraulic Company, a dam building and real estate investment business. The town was originally named Kilbourne City for Brian Kilbourne, the president of the La Crosse and Milwaukee Railroad Company, which was then preparing to build a railroad across the Wisconsin River to connect Milwaukee and La Crosse, Wisconsin. The railroad's route caused great local controversy. Boosters and speculators had anticipated the river crossing 2 miles downriver, where they established the town of Newport. The city attracted 1,500 residents by 1855. When the railroad completed a slightly more northern route in 1857, Newport rapidly turned into a ghost town as its residents relocated to the site of the railroad bridge, bringing many buildings and even a church from the earlier town to reassemble in Kilbourne City. In 1859, lumbermen destroyed the Wisconsin Hydraulic Company's new dam at Kilbourne City because it blocked the flow of timber rafts down the river. This led the company's main creditor, Brian Kilbourne, to foreclose on its property and take ownership of most of the city's real estate. Kilbourne City quickly became a popular travel destination in the Midwest due to the scenery of the dells of the Wisconsin River and the available railroad access. In 1856, entrepreneur Leroy Gates began taking tourists on boat tours of the Wisconsin Dells and promoting the town to railroad travelers. These tours were given using wooden rowboats until 1873, when 2 excursion steamers were launched. In 1909, the Kilbourne Dam was completed across the Wisconsin River to generate hydroelectricity, separating the dells into the upper and lower dells. It is now owned by Alliant Energy. The completion of the Kilbourne Dam raised the water level of the upper dells by about 17 feet. In 1928, Mr. Clinton Berry established Berry's Dells Airport. Berry built the airport to carry visitors to the dells from the surrounding metropolitan areas. Kilbourne City shortened its name to Kilbourne in 1895 and then changed its name to Wisconsin Dells in 1931, identifying itself with the famous natural landscape of the dells of the Wisconsin River. In 1952, a new traveling performance from Chicago called Tommy Bartlett's Thrill Show came to Lake Delton. Following the show's huge success in the city, its owner, Tommy Bartlett, chose to keep the performance permanently in Wisconsin Dells. To promote the show, Bartlett gave away bumper stickers advertising his thrill show and the city, effectively spreading word about the area across the nation. Soon more attractions followed to serve the ever-increasing tourists, along with many hotels, shops, and restaurants.
Now, as we turn the boat here, Steamboat Rock is going to be on our left-hand side. And it gets its name because when aerialists and hot air balloonists from the early 20th century would look down from up above, they said that it was shaped like a pumpkin seed-shaped steamboat. Now, as we make our way past Steamboat Rock, you guys may have noticed that it did get a little bit dimmer back here and a little bit cooler. Some might even say a little bit more romantic. And that is, in fact, because we've entered Lover's Lane.
Tourism is a major contributor to the economy of Wisconsin Dells. The Dells area has many indoor and outdoor water parks, proclaiming itself the water park capital of the world. Other attractions include boat tours, ziplining, golf courses, mini golf, go-kart tracks, water sports, horseback riding, museums, amusement parks, and a casino. Most attractions are located on the Strip, otherwise known as the Wisconsin Dells Parkway. Accommodations range from economical motels to RV parks to chain hotels to themed resorts featuring indoor and outdoor water parks and other amenities. Amphibious vehicles called ducks began offering duck tours to tourists in Wisconsin Dells in 1946. The tours visit wilderness trails and enter nearby Lake Delton and the Wisconsin River. One company, the original Wisconsin Ducks, has more than 90 vehicles and is the largest operator of duck tours in the U.S. Our group took a boat ride on the Wisconsin River to explore the dells of the Wisconsin River, a 5-mile gorge in south-central Wisconsin. It is noted for its scenic beauty, in particular for its unique Cambrian sandstone formations and tributary canyons. The formations are divided into the upper dells and the lower dells by the Kilbourne Dam. The cliffs, some over 100 feet high, and the side canyons are closed to the public to protect sensitive ecological features. The viewing of the rock formations by water is a popular tourist attraction in the area. The Dells was formed during the last ice age, approximately 15,000 years ago, although the rock itself is much older, dating from the Cambrian, approximately 510 to 520 million years ago, when the area of Wisconsin was at the bottom of a shallow sea. Approximately 19,000 years ago, the Dells was at the extreme western margin of the continental glacier. However, the Dells itself was never covered by glacial ice sheets. It was part of the large driftless area that was bypassed by the ice. The melting of the glacier formed Glacial Lake Wisconsin, a lake about the size of Great Salt Lake in Utah and as deep as 150 feet. The lake was held back by an ice dam of the remaining glacier. The eventual bursting of the ice dam unleashed a catastrophic flood, dropping the lake's depth to 50 feet and cutting the deep, narrow gorges and unusual rock formations in the sandstone seen today. The area of the Dells provides a mixture of plant communities, including northern and southern oak, pine forests, as well as oak savanna, moist cliffs, and dry cliffs. The cliffs provide unique niches for plants, some of which are very rare. Among the rare animals in the Dells are 6 dragonfly species, 6 rare mussels, and numerous species of birds. The cultural history of the area stretches back several thousand years, from early Paleo-Indian people to the more recent Native American peoples such as Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Menominee, who left behind effigy and burial mounds, camps and village sites, garden beds, and rock art.
Did he make a big deal out of that?
The dog is famous for jumping between the rocks. Due to the rain causing slippery surfaces, the dog did not jump while we were there.
Careful.
Say over here. Oh, look. There's a baby squirrel right there. Bye-bye. Oh, it's a little beach. Mom, a picture here?
No, no, Mom. Stop.
We took numerous back roads as we zigzagged our way north toward Green Bay. I was fascinated to see that almost every road in the area was paved. We spent the evening at the Island Resort and Casino in Harris, Michigan, just southwest of Escanaba. Our lunch on Monday was consumed at a privately owned restaurant at Tahquamenon Falls State Park. The food was good and the restaurant and gift shop were interesting to visit. Tahquamenon Falls are a series of waterfalls on the Tahquamenon River shortly before it empties into Lake Superior in the northeastern Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They are the largest waterfalls in Michigan and one of the largest in the eastern half of North America. The water is noticeably brown in color from the tannins leached from the cedar swamps which the river drains, leading to the nickname Root Beer Falls. The falls are within Tahquamenon Falls State Park. The park covers 46,179 acres and is the largest of Michigan's state parks. Tahquamenon Falls State Park is located between the towns of Newberry and Paradise and is a popular tourist destination during all seasons. The falls are divided into the upper and lower falls. We took the walking trail to the upper falls, and Terry, our guide, explained many interesting facts about the area along the trail. The upper falls consists of a single drop of approximately 48 feet where the river is more than 200 feet across. During the late spring runoff, the river drains as much as 50,000 gallons of water per second, making the upper falls the third most voluminous waterfall east of the Mississippi River, after Niagara Falls and Cohoes Falls. The lower falls is located about 4 miles downstream and consists of 5 smaller falls cascading around an island. The island can be reached by rowboat from the basin below the lower falls or by a footbridge constructed in 2022. We did not visit the lower falls. The falls take their name from the river, which appears to come from Tahquamenon Island in Whitefish Bay, near the mouth of the river. There are 5 campgrounds in the park with a total of 350 campsites. The park receives as many as 500,000 visitors per year, many of whom drive in on the state park's only paved road, Michigan 123. Our next stop was the Whitefish Point Lighthouse and Shipwreck Museum. The Whitefish Point Light is a lighthouse located on the southeastern shore of Lake Superior. It sits at the edge of Whitefish Point leading into Whitefish Bay. Construction on the first light began in 1847, and when it was first lit in 1849, it was one of the first lighthouses on the shores of Lake Superior. It is the oldest active light on the lake, standing at the point of land that marks the course change for vessels coming from the southern coast of Lake Superior, known as the Graveyard of the Great Lakes, to the Sioux Locks. All vessels entering or leaving Lake Superior must pass Whitefish Point. Whitefish Point Light is arguably the most important light on Lake Superior. The original structure was outfitted with Lewis lamps, which thereafter were upgraded to a Fresnel lens. The current structure, while modern-looking, is a Civil War relic. Built in 1861, the iron skeleton steel framework was designed to relieve stress caused by the high winds. In 1968, the light was replaced with a DCB 224 aero beacon. The light was visible for a distance of 30 miles in clear weather conditions and had 2 flashes within every 20-second period. The station was automated in 1971 and is controlled from Sault Ste. Marie. In 2011, the aero beacon lens was changed to an LED lantern with a reduced range of 17 miles. The lighthouse is home to the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum, which has many artifacts from numerous shipwrecks in the Whitefish Point Underwater Preserve, most notably the bell from the Edmund Fitzgerald, which was recovered from the wreck in 1995. Whitefish Point is known as the Graveyard of Ships, as more vessels have been lost here than any other part of the lake. Hundreds of vessels, including the famed Edmund Fitzgerald, lie on the bottom of the bay and its approaches. The lighthouse marks the end of an 80-mile stretch of shoreline known as Lake Superior's Shipwreck Coast. This light has shined into the Big Lake unfailingly for 173 years, except for the night when the Edmund Fitzgerald went down. At 4:30 p.m. on November 10, 1975, as the Edmund Fitzgerald struggled toward Whitefish Bay, the light in the radio beacon at the remote navigational station at Whitefish Point suddenly clicked off. The Fitzgerald, already crippled by non-functioning storm-damaged radar, was now without homing capability from the automated system at Whitefish. The Fitzgerald was left to fend for itself in unbelievable weather conditions. At approximately 7:15 p.m., November 10, 1975, the 729-foot ore freighter Edmund Fitzgerald and her crew of 29 sailed into history. Each year on November 10th, there is a memorial service at the Whitefish Point Light Station for the crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald. The ship's bell is rung 30 times, once for each member of the crew and 1 time for all mariners who have been lost at sea. One of the Coast Guard buildings now houses the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. The Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, a group of divers researching the wrecks, opened the museum in 1986. This is the only museum dedicated to shipwrecks on the Great Lakes. The surrounding buildings were once home to the Coast Guard personnel stationed at this light and responsible for its maintenance. The Whitefish Point Underwater Preserve is part of Michigan's underwater preserve system developed for scuba divers. Lake Superior water is cold enough to preserve the shipwrecks, almost as if they went down yesterday. Visibility at Whitefish Point Underwater Preserve is outstanding. Visibility is 30 to 50 feet at 100-foot depth. The sandy beach along the point is an exciting place to look for banded agates, especially after a storm, or to take a walk along the sandy shoreline and enjoy the magic of Lake Superior. Whitefish Point is approximately 70 miles from Sault Ste. Marie. We spent the evening at the Tahquamenon Casino in Sault Ste. Marie. The Mackinac Bridge is a suspension bridge spanning the Straits of Mackinac, connecting the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan. Opened in 1957, the 26,372-foot-long bridge is the world's 27th longest main span and the longest suspension bridge between anchorages in the Western Hemisphere. The bridge connects the city of St. Ignace on the north end with the village of Mackinac City on the south. The length of the bridge's main span is 3,800 feet, which makes it the third longest suspension span in the U.S. and 20th worldwide. It is also one of the world's longest bridges overall at 4.995 miles. As exploitation of the state's mineral and timber resources increased in the 19th century, the area became an important transport hub. In 1881, the Mackinac Transportation Company was established to operate a railroad car ferry service across the straits. The idea of the bridge was discussed in the Michigan legislature as early as the 1880s. Improved highways along the eastern shores of the lower peninsula brought increased automobile traffic to the region starting in the 1910s. The state of Michigan initiated an automobile ferry service between Mackinac City and St. Ignace in 1923. It eventually operated 9 ferry boats that would carry as many as 9,000 vehicles a day. By 1928, the ferry service had become so popular and so expensive to operate that Michigan Governor Fred W. Greene ordered a study of the feasibility of building a bridge across the strait. In 1934, the Michigan legislature created the Mackinac Straits Bridge Authority to explore possible methods of constructing and funding a bridge. By 1940, the authority had selected a route for the bridge. Initial plans for the bridge featured a 3-lane roadway, a railroad crossing on the underdeck of the span, with a center anchorage double suspension bridge configuration similar to the design of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. Because this would have required sinking an anchorage pier in the deepest area of the straits, practicality was questionable. A 4,000-foot concrete causeway extending from the northern shore was constructed in shallow water from 1939 to 1941. However, a unique engineering challenge was ahead. Because the lakes freeze during the winter, large icebergs place enormous stress on the bridge. Due to the outbreak of World War II, the project was put on hold. Construction began on May 7, 1954. Construction took 3.5 years at a total cost of $100 million and the lives of 5 workers. It opened to traffic on November 1st, 1957, and the ferry service was discontinued on the same day. The design of the Mackinac Bridge was directly influenced by lessons from the first Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which failed in 1940 because of instability and high winds. An analysis of suspension bridge stability problems recommended that future bridge designs include deep stiffening trusses to support the bridge deck and an open grid roadway to reduce wind resistance. Both of these features were incorporated into the design of the Mackinac Bridge. The stiffening truss is open to reduce wind resistance. The road deck is shaped as an airfoil to provide lift in a crosswind, and the two center lanes are open grid to allow vertical airflow, which cancels the lift, making the roadway stable in winds of up to 150 miles per hour. Some interesting facts about the bridge. The current toll is $4 for automobiles and $5 per axle for trucks. Bicycles and pedestrians are not permitted. Painting of the bridge takes 7 years, and when painting of the bridge is complete, it begins again. July is usually the busiest month, with more than 600,000 vehicles crossing the bridge. That's between 20 and 21,000 vehicles a day. Total width of the roadway is 54 feet. The two outside lanes measure 12 feet wide, while the two inside lanes are 11 feet. The center division measures 2 feet. On each side, there is a catwalk, curb, and rail measuring 3 feet. The height of the roadway is approximately 200 feet above water level at mid-span. Under the bridge, there is a vertical clearance of 155 feet at the center of the main suspension span and 135 feet at the boundaries of the 3,000-foot wide navigation channel. The towers measure 552 feet above water and 210 feet below the water. The depth of the water beneath the center of the bridge is 250 feet. Each of the main cables contains 12,580 wires. The diameter of each cable is 24.5 inches. The total length of wire in the main cables is 42,000 miles. Speed limit on the bridge is 45 miles per hour for passenger cars and 20 miles per hour for heavy trucks. Heavy trucks are also required to leave a 500-foot spacing ahead. The first annual Mackinac Bridge Walk was held in 1958. Thousands of people, traditionally led by the governor of Michigan, crossed the 5-mile span on foot from St. Ignace to Mackinac City. The entire bridge is closed to public vehicle traffic for the duration of the Labor Day event. We boarded the Starline Ferry for our ride from Mackinac City to Mackinac Island. The fee to ride this ferry is $29. The combined fee for the ferry and a carriage ride at Mackinac Island is $68. The ferry ride is 7.2 miles and takes approximately 20 minutes. These ferries are jet ferries. They travel at good speed, although the ride is a bit noisy. Mackinac Island is an island and resort area covering 4.3 square miles in land area. The name of the island in Odawa is Michilimackinac, meaning Big Turtle. The island is located in Lake Huron at the east end of the Straits of Mackinac between Michigan's upper and lower peninsulas. The island was long home to an Odawa settlement and previous indigenous cultures before European colonization began in the 17th century. It was a strategic center of the fur trade around the Great Lakes. Based on a former trading post, Fort Mackinac was constructed on the island by the British during the American Revolutionary War. It was the site of 2 battles during the War of 1812 before the northern border was settled and the U.S. gained this island in its territory. In the late 19th century, Mackinac Island became a popular tourist attraction and summer colony. Many of the structures on the island have undergone extensive historical preservation and restoration. Because of its historical significance, the entire island is listed as a National Historic Landmark. It is well known for numerous cultural events, a wide variety of architectural styles, including the Victorian Grand Hotel and its ban on almost all motor vehicles. More than 80% of the island is preserved as Mackinac Island State Park. Archaeologists have excavated prehistoric fishing camps on Mackinac Island and in the surrounding areas. Fish hooks, pottery, and other artifacts establish a Native American presence at least 700 years before European exploration around AD 900. The island is a sacred place in the tradition of some of its earliest known inhabitants, the Anishinaabe people. The first European likely to have seen Mackinac Island is Jean Nicolet, a French-Canadian coureur de bois during his explorations in 1634. The Jesuit priest Claude de Boulogne founded a mission for the Native Americans on Mackinac Island in 1670 and stayed over the winter of 1670 and 71. The missionary and explorer Jacques Marquette succeeded him, moving the mission to Saint Ignace soon after his arrival in the region in the fall of 1671. With the mission as a focus, the Straits of Mackinac quickly became an important fur trading location. The British took control of the Straits of Mackinac after the French and Indian War, and Major Patrick Sinclair chose the bluffs of the island for Fort Mackinac in 1780.
Really? Over here, this is our post office there. Now our post office is very unique because they do not deliver any mail. We have a saying here on Mackinac Island, rain, sleet, or shine, you can get your own mail. Come on, boys. Now these two buildings here are the John Jacob Astor American Fur Trade Office. In 1822, they did $3 million in fur trade. Once the fur trade dried up in 1830s, they moved off to New York and started buying up real estate.
Although the British built Fort Mackinac to protect their settlement from attack by French Canadians and native tribes, the fort was never attacked during the American Revolutionary War. The entire Straits area was officially acquired by the United States through the Treaty of Paris in 1783. However, Britain kept forces in the Great Lakes area until after 1794, when the Jay Treaty between the nations established U.S. sovereignty over the Northwest Territory.
Does any of you have a guess at how long you think it took them to build that hotel? 2 years?
5 years.
5 years? All right. 3, 6? 93 days. Yep. Now back then when they're building it, they wanted it done in 90 days. The construction team was told, if you can finish in 90 days, you'll get $1 million bonus. Now they almost got there. They got to the 89th day, and then they learned that the bonus doesn't go to them at all, it goes to their bosses. And as a result of that, they lost their tools, a wall accidentally fell down, and they finished in 93 days, and the bosses did not get their bonus. Now there are 2 movies filmed here. One in 19...
During the War of 1812, the British captured the fort in the siege of Fort Mackinac, the first battle of the conflict. The Americans were caught by surprise, not knowing that war had been declared. The victorious British attempted to protect their prize by building Fort George on the high ground behind Fort Mackinac. In 1814, the Americans and British fought a second battle on the north side of the island.
So we'll switch out the teams with a brand new team, and then of course they'll get the rest of the day off. Horses only work 2 days a week, and then they get a day off. Pretty much they have better unions than I do.
By the Treaty of Ghent in 1815, the British returned the island and surrounding mainland to the United States. The United States reoccupied Fort Mackinac and renamed Fort George as Fort Holmes. Fort Mackinac remained under control of the U.S. government until 1895. John Jacob Astor's American Fur Company was centered on Mackinac Island after the War of 1812 and exported beaver pelts for 30 years. By the middle of the 19th century, commercial fishing for common whitefish and lake trout began to replace the fur trade as the island's primary industry. As sport fishing became more popular in the 1880s, hotels and restaurants accommodated tourists coming by train or lake boat from Detroit. Following the Civil War, The island became a popular tourist destination for residents of major cities on the Great Lakes. Much of the federal land on Mackinac Island was designated as the second national park, Mackinac National Park, in 1875, 3 years after Yellowstone National Park was named as the first national park. To accommodate an influx of tourists in the 1880s, the boat and railroad companies built hotels, including the Grand Hotel. Island residents established souvenir shops to profit from the tourist trade. Many wealthy business magnates built summer cottages along the island's bluffs for extended stays. When the federal government left the island in 1895, it transferred all the federal land, including Fort Mackinac, to the state of Michigan. The area was designated as Michigan's first state park. The Mackinac Island State Park Commission, appointed to oversee the island, restricted private development in the park. In addition, it requires leaseholders to maintain the island's distinctive Victorian architecture. Motor vehicles were restricted at the end of the 19th century because of concerns for the health and safety of the island's residents and horses, after local carriage drivers complained that automobiles startled their horses. This ban continues to the present, with exceptions only for city emergency vehicles such as ambulance, police cars, and fire trucks, city service vehicles, and snowmobiles in the winter. According to the 2020 United States Census, the island has a year-round population of about 600. The population grows considerably during the summer from tourists and seasonal workers. Hotels, restaurants, bars, and retail shops hire hundreds of short-term employees to accommodate as many as 15,000 visitors per day. Mackinac Island is about 8 miles in circumference, and the highest point of the island is the historic Fort Holmes, which is about 320 feet above lake level and about 890 feet above sea level. Mackinac Island was formed as the glaciers of the last ice age began to melt around 13,000 BC. The bedrock strata that underlie the island are much older, dating about 400 to 420 million years ago. Subsurface deposits of halite dissolved, allowing the collapse of the overlying limestones. These once broken but now solidified rocks comprise the Mackinac breccia. The melting glaciers formed the Great Lakes, and the receding waters eroded the limestone bedrock, forming the island's steep cliffs and rock formations. One of the most popular geologic formations is Arch Rock, a natural limestone arch 146 feet above the ground. Mackinac Island contains a wide variety of terrain, including fields, marshes, bogs, coastline, boreal forest, and limestone formations. The environment is legally preserved on the island by the State Historic Park designation. About half of the shoreline and adjacent waters off Mackinac Island, including the harbor, is protected as parts of the Straits of Mackinac Shipwreck Preserve, a state marine park. As it is separated from the mainland by 3 miles of water, few large mammals inhabit the island, except those that traverse the ice during the winter months. Rabbits, fox, raccoons, otters, mink, gray and red squirrels, and chipmunks are all common, as are the occasional beaver and coyote. Bats are abundant on the island, as it has numerous caves that serve as dwellings for them and a large insect population for the bats to prey on. The island is frequented by migratory birds on their trips between their summer and winter habitats, as it lies on a major migration route. Eagles and hawks are abundant in April and May, while smaller birds such as yellow warblers, American redstart, and indigo bunting are common in early summer. Near the shoreline, gulls, herons, geese, and loons are common. Owls, including snowy owls and great gray owls, come to the island from the Arctic to hunt in the warmer climate. Other birds, such as chickadees, cardinals, blue jays, and woodpeckers, live on the island year-round. Toads have also been found. Mackinac Island contains over 600 species of vascular plants. Flowering plants and wildflowers are abundant in the island's forests and are home to many varieties of trees, such as maple, birch, elm, cedar, pine, and spruce. Built by the British in 1780, Fort Mackinac was closed as a fort by the United States in 1895, as it no longer had any strategic purpose. It has been restored to its late 19th century state through efforts beginning in the 1930s. The island can be reached by private boat, by ferry, by small aircraft, and in the winter by snowmobile over an ice bridge. The airport has a 3,500-foot paved runway, and daily charter air service from the mainland is available. In the summer tour season, ferry service is available from Shepler's Ferry and Starline Ferry to shuttle visitors to the island from St. Ignace and Mackinac City. Travel on the island is either by foot, bicycle, horse, or horse-drawn carriage. Roller skates and rollerblades are also allowed, except in the downtown area. Bicycles, roller skates, rollerblades, carriages, and saddle horses are available for rent. More than 85,000 bicycles are licensed on Mackinac Island. An 8-mile road follows the island's perimeter, and numerous roads, trails, and paths cover the interior. M185, the United States' only state highway without motorized vehicles, makes a circular loop around the island, closely hugging the shoreline. No camping is allowed on the island, but numerous hotels and bed and breakfasts are available. The downtown streets are lined with many retail stores and restaurants.
Now this white house up here, that actually is the wedding cake house. All that blue ribboning is carved into the wood. You can see the pretty blue sky on the porch. That's actually to keep birds from nesting. Now the other one up there, it's for sale right now. It's $5.8 million. Now the house has 7 bedrooms. The guest house behind it has 11 bedrooms. And the carriage house behind that has 14 bedrooms for staff and drivers. 5.1 actually now. They lowered it. Now the White House right here, this is Manugian's house. They own a charitable foundation in the Detroit area. Now this actually, that first white one is called the Hog Haven. You can see Round Island Lighthouse over there. If you're not a guest, you have to pay $10. But if you're a guest, no. Now right here is actually where Thomas Edison unveiled his gramophone. And down there is actually the pool there. Come on, get up. Ooh. All right, folks.
Carlton Varney purposely designed the Grand Hotel so that all the rooms are different from each other in at least one aspect. There are 4 types of rooms, Category 1, 2, and 3, and the named rooms. 7 suites are named for and designed by 7 former First Ladies of the U.S., Jacqueline Kennedy, Betty Ford, Rosalind Carter, Nancy Reagan, Barbara Bush, and Laura Bush.
Oh, no, we were.
Grand Hotel's front porch is the longest in the world at some 660 feet in length. The porch overlooks a vast tea garden and the resort-scale Esther Williams swimming pool. These areas are often used by guests on a casual family vacation, for large conventions, or concerts during the hotel's annual Labor Day Jazz Festival. The hotel has drawn some criticism for its policy of charging a $10 fee for non-guests to enter the building and enjoy the view from the famous porch. Before 2007, air conditioning was only available in public rooms, such as the lobby, parlor, and main dining room. Due to the building's design, it was difficult to add air conditioning to the guest rooms. That year, the entire hotel became air-conditioned after 170 guest rooms were installed with heat exchangers. During the winter months, when ice prevents ferry transport from the mainland, the hotel is closed. The Grand Hotel opened in 1887. The 1980 film Somewhere in Time was shot on location at the hotel.
You won't get no lake thing, that's for sure. Well, really? Okay.
Every summer, Mackinac Island accommodates approximately 60 Michigan Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and their leaders over alternate weeks. These scouts serve the state park as the Mackinac Island Governor's Honor Guard. The program began in 1929 when the State Park Commission invited 8 Eagle Scouts, including Gerald Ford, later President of the United States, to the island. In 1974, the program was expanded by Governor William Milliken to include Girl Scouts. The program is popular, selective, and a long-standing tradition. Scouts raise and lower 27 flags on the island, service guides, and complete volunteer service projects during their stay. The Scouts live in the Scout Barracks behind Fort Mackinac. Another special event that Mackinac Island is known for is the Mackinac Island Fudge Festival that takes place in August. People travel from all over the world to devour Mackinac fudge. We enjoyed watching the fudge making process on our visit. Mackinac Island is a destination for 2 sailing races. It serves as a finish line for both the Port Huron to Mackinac race and the Chicago Yacht Club race to Mackinac. The races are run a week apart in July. They are both among the longest freshwater sailing races in the world and attract over 500 boats and 3,500 sailors combined. Both races have been run every year since the 1920s. Here are some interesting facts about Mackinac Island. Mackinac Island issued its first horse-drawn carriage license in 1869. 3 decades later, carriage operators were instrumental in banning horseless carriages on Mackinac Island. As a result, horse-drawn carriage tours remain a popular Mackinac Island activity because motor vehicles are not allowed. It's been that way now for over 120 years. In addition to horse-drawn carriages, bicycles populate the streets of Mackinac Island. There are several bike rental shops on Mackinac Island offering single bikes, tandem bikes, tag-alongs, e-scooters, and more. According to the Mackinac Island website, there are 1,489 bicycles for rent on the island. Bicycles can be rented by the hour, half-day, or full day. At the shop we visited, full-day prices range from $85 to $120. Mackinac Island hotels, resorts, bed and breakfasts, condos, and cottages have more than 1,600 rooms available for rent. 10 tons of sugar is imported weekly in peak season to make world-famous Mackinac Island fudge. Margaret Dowd has served as mayor of Mackinac Island for 47 years. The water surrounding Mackinac Island is 120 feet deep. Most of the buildings on Mackinac Island are built of wood, a few are of stone, and most have clapboard siding. The architectural styles on the island span 300 years, from the earliest Native American structures to the European American styles of the 19th century. The Biddle House, one of the oldest structures on Mackinac Island, was built about 1780. It was home of the Metis-Biddle family during the height of the fur trade in the 1820s. The Mangolpin House, possibly constructed prior to 1870, served as a frontier working-class home. The Agency House of the American Fur Company was built in 1820 as a residence for the company's Mackinac Island agent Robert Stewart. It has been adapted into a fur trade museum and is open to the public. The Mission Church was built in 1829 and is the oldest surviving church building in Michigan. It has been restored to its 1830s appearance. St. Anne Catholic Church was built in 1874. It replaced earlier parish churches in use on Mackinac Island and the adjacent mainland. The parish register records participants in sacraments such as baptisms, marriages, and funerals from 1695. Wawashkamo Golf Club was laid out in 1898 as a Scottish links-type course. It is the oldest continuously played golf course in Michigan. The Michigan Governor's Summer Residence was built overlooking the harbor in 1902. It was purchased by the state in 1943 for use as a seasonal governor's residence.
That's like your private boat ride.
I was impressed how accurately the captain of the ferry maneuvered the boat.
Park area. Life jacket donning instructions are provided on flylights located on each deck in clearly visible areas. Emergency exits are located at the front and back of the main cabin. There is no smoking allowed on the boat at any time.
The Round Island Lighthouse is located just south of Mackinac Island on the small uninhabited Round Island, which is held and operated by the United States Forest Service. The light was built in 1894 and automated in 1924. On Wednesday, we headed south from Mackinac City, Michigan on Interstate 75. Our travel destination for the day was Shipshewana, Indiana. We stopped for a potty break in Houghton Lake and then rolled south to Lansing. We ate lunch at the Cracker Barrel on the west side of Lansing, Michigan. We then traveled Interstate 69 to Indiana 120 and then took a short jaunt north on Indiana 5 to Shipshewana. Shipshewana is a small town with a population of just over 1,000 residents. Shipshewana has marketed the town well. The village is home of the Shipshewana Flea Market, the largest flea market in the Midwest. It is also the site of large livestock and antique auctions each week. The village has many campsites for RVs, as well as the very large Farmstead Inn, where we made our home for 2 nights. Shipshewana also holds numerous large concerts and conventions. The Farmstead Inn is a very large property with several large meeting areas for events. Shipshewana is located in the heart of Amish Mennonite country. It was nice to see the beautifully kept properties. Obviously, the people take a lot of pride in their community. We ate a family-style meal at the Blue Gate Restaurant in downtown Shipshewana, located near the 4-way stop signs in the center of town. On Thursday, we were joined by Harry Stutzman, a local Amish farmer and dairyman. Harry spoke to us about the Amish way of life and guided us to our first stop at an Amish furniture factory store. I found this table especially beautiful. I also made a new friend in the parking lot of the furniture store.
There's Dina's, and it's probably the hardest thing I ever went through in my life. 2 years ago, we divided our church. It was getting so big, it's kind of unhandy when we have children coming under instruction to be baptized. There were so many people, people would go to visiting. The pulpit bishop would put a piece of paper in there that would say you were getting with the amount of divided into 8 different groups. So if you have a hospital bill for $20,000, it's going to stay in the group that the hospital bill occurred. But if it goes over 20 to 40,000, it goes to 2 groups. If it goes from 40 to 60, 3 groups, and so on. So
We visited an Amish leather shop. It was interesting to see and hear about the various materials and procedures used. It only took the shop maker a few minutes to make nice belts for a few of our crew members.
So that's the python.
what would that cost?
They're about $75 to $90 a meter, which is, they're oftentimes.
We have a man in Burlington that will take rattlesnake skins and he makes furniture.
I got a question. Being a leather shop,
After a stop at the leather business, Harry took us to his home in the countryside near Shipshewana. His discussion of the Amish way of life during the ride was very educational. I found it interesting how the church districts help others in times of need with hospital expenses, raising buildings, etc. Harry showed us his wife's garden and gave us a tour of his farm and dairy operation.
I hope it's heavy.
These goats, sheep, and pigs were entertaining. Harry said they usually run up the stairs to eat the grain he tosses on the roof, but they were not very cooperative the day we were there.
At times. Yeah, they both do. Come on, lay down. Lay down. We want to see you laying down. There you go. Now we are. Okay.
Oh, how cool.
I think somebody's doing it. Yeah. Normally she'd run up.
Harry is pioneering a small milk bottling facility at his dairy and is currently selling small bottles of milk in several flavors. He gave us a tour of his barns, milking facility, as well as the bottling facility.
We're tracking up 150, but I think we're down about 130 or something.
The pipe goes onto there, into that, you know, it's all tore apart, guys, so you gotta use your imagination. There's valves that go onto here.
Into the opener?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Excuse me, I'm getting a little thick in my throat. I think it needs some milk. Okay, now that cap goes up that elevator, and if it's not turned the right way, it's gonna fall back down. So is the flat side.
Failed the test here.
Flat side down. The flat side is that way? Okay, it's gonna continue, and it'll drop over into the slide. There she goes. Now it comes right down here. She's ready to meet the bottom. All right, now, turn this on. This little plate here is going to grab the bottom. It's going to take it around and set it on the table. Okay, the bottom comes up. Into the valve. It's getting filled. And as it comes around, it's going to drop back down. And this plate here is going to grab it and give it a cap. It's going to give it a cap. There she comes, grabs the cap, comes on around. Now these guys are all disassembled. I have to turn the cap tight. Comes on over here, goes into this conveyor that shoots it right back into the cooler.
Harry showed us the Amish church wagon. Church is held every other Sunday at a different church member's home. The wagon travels from home to home and contains benches for the congregation. 3 different men preach at each service. After the tour of Harry's farm, we stopped at another farm for a thresher's meal. The food was plentiful and very good. As we ready to leave for the afternoon, the coach would not start. Eventually, a mechanic was summoned, and a new starter was bolted in place of the defective unit.
Hold still, Greg.
We spent a second evening at the beautiful Farmstead Inn. On Friday, we drove from Shipshewana to Louisville, Kentucky. Our route took us down Indiana Highways 5 and 9 to Interstate 69. The drive took us past many fields of corn and soybeans and eventually into some heavy traffic around Indianapolis, where we stopped for lunch at a Cheddar's restaurant. We followed Highway 465 around the east side of Indy and then traveled down Interstate 65 to Louisville. The Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory is located in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. The museum showcases the story of the Louisville Slugger baseball bats in baseball and in American history. The facility is the fourth location where Louisville Slugger bats have been made. The original shop was on South 1st Street in Louisville between Main and Market Street. It was there that the family legend suggests J.A. Bud Hillerick made a bat for Louisville Eclipse star Pete Browning after Browning broke his bat during a game in which Hillerick attended in July of 1884. The next day, Browning got 3 hits with the bat, and the legend was born. In 1901, the factory moved to the corner of South Preston and Finzer Streets, where they would stay until 1974. From 1974 to 1996, Louisville Sluggers were actually made in Jeffersonville, Indiana, just across the Ohio River at a facility called Slugger Park, while Hillerick and Bradsby maintained corporate offices on Broadway in Louisville. Starting in the early 1990s, H&B CEO John A. Jack Hillerick III began looking to move production back to Louisville. Hillerick wanted to bring the factory back together with the business offices while also providing a place for the public to connect with the Louisville Slugger brand. Eventually, the site of a former tobacco warehouse at 8th and Main Streets was chosen. After extensive renovations, the museum and factory opened in July of 1996. The museum underwent extensive renovations in 2008. A giant wooden wall in the foyer displays signatures of every Louisville Slugger contract player. Honus Wagner was the first player to sign a promotional contract with H&B in 1905. Doing so, he became the first athlete to endorse a product in history. Guests can look into a bat vault where all Louisville Slugger bat models are kept. More than 3,000 different bat models are made. Some of the bats in the vault are more than 100 years old. In the batting cages, guests can use historic bat models or the latest Louisville Slugger composite model to swing for the fence. Visitors can hold a game-used bat from Hall of Fame players such as Babe Ruth, Johnny Bench, and Ken Griffey Jr., as well as representatives of all 30 Major League Baseball teams. The tour of the Louisville Slugger Bat Factory consists of 5 stops, showing how the famous bats are made. Originally, bats were turned on a lathe by hand. Today, the milling process is computer-controlled. Tours typically last around 30 minutes. The museum usually draws more than 300,000 visitors each year. The building also houses corporate offices for Hillrick and Brasby, and its 2 other divisions, Bionic Gloves and Power-Built Golf Clubs. Wilson Sporting Goods also maintains much of its Louisville Slugger sales force in the building after purchasing the brand from H&B in 2015. The Hillrick family maintains ownership of the museum and bat factory. Here are some other interesting facts. The average professional baseball player uses about 120 bats each season. About half of the bats are made of white ash. The other half is made from maple. H&B owns about 6,500 acres in New York and Pennsylvania, where most of the lumber comes from. About 1.9 million bats are made each year at the factory. That is approximately 3,000 per day. Near the beginning of spring training each year, approximately 5,000 bats a day are produced. Lifelike statues of Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Ken Griffey Jr., Derek Jeter, Jackie Robinson, and Roberto Clemente are located in the statue gallery. The world's largest baseball bat stands outside the Louisville Slugger Factory and Museum. The bat is 120 feet tall, 9 feet in diameter at the base, and weighs 68,000 pounds. Churchill Downs is a horse racing complex located on Central Avenue in South Louisville, Kentucky. The facility opened in 1875 and is famous for hosting the annual Kentucky Derby. The first Kentucky Derby, a thoroughbred sweepstakes and part of today's horse racing Triple Crown, and the first Kentucky Oaks were held the same year. Churchill Downs has also hosted the renowned Breeders' Cup on 9 occasions. The racetrack is owned and operated by Churchill Downs Incorporated. With the infield open for the Kentucky Derby, the capacity of Churchill Downs is roughly 170,000 spectators. The track is named for John and Henry Churchill, who leased 80 acres of land to their nephew, Colonel Meriwether Lewis Clark, Jr., grandson of explorer William Clark. Clark was president of the Louisville Jockey Club and Driving Park Association, which formed in 1875. His father-in-law, Richard Ten Brock, was an accomplished horse breeder and trainer, and introduced Clark to horse racing by attending the English Derby at Epsom Downs outside London. We ate breakfast at Wagner's Track Kitchen, located at the racetrack. It was interesting to see the horses and jockeys up close while they were training. Most of the jockeys work out multiple horses for several owners throughout the day. Trainers and stable personnel come from all parts of the globe and live at Churchill Downs. The track is a small community with a dormitory, recreation hall, equine medical center, kitchen, and church on site. Churchill Downs filled a void in Louisville left by the closing of Oakland and Woodlawn, two earlier racecourses. The then rural location was along the Louisville and Nashville railroad tracks, allowing for easy transport of horses. Clark, who preferred longer races to the relatively short ones that had become popular by the 1890s, was running short of funds, and in 1894 sold the track to a syndicate led by William E. Applegate. The new ownership would soon institute many changes, such as commissioning the famous Twin Spire Grandstand in 1895, shortening the length of the signature race to its modern 1¼ miles in 1896, and adorning the winner of the Kentucky Derby with a garland of roses, a tradition that also began in 1896. In early 1902, Applegate, who had made his fortune as a bookmaker, turned over the day-to-day operations of the track to Charles F. Granger, then the mayor of Louisville, in an effort to move Churchill Downs away from being primarily known for gambling. Churchill Downs prospered, and the Kentucky Derby then became the preeminent stakes race for 3-year-old thoroughbred horses in North America. During that period, a new clubhouse was built in order to promote social interaction, and new events such as steeplechases, automobile races, and band concerts were held at the track. The state fair was held on the grounds, featuring the odd spectacle of 2 locomotives being intentionally crashed head-on in the infield. The Churchill Downs complex now covers 147 acres.
And they all turn too. That way there's no dispute of their age.
The racetrack measures 1 mile around and is composed of a mixture of 75% sand, 23% clay, and 2% silt. It makes for a safer, more cushioned surface which protects the horses when they run. This is the starting gate used for the Kentucky Derby. It holds 20 horses and is the largest starting gate in the world. In 1908, parimutuel betting machines were introduced as gambling became less controversial, and the wagering portion of the track's business became more profitable. Churchill Downs ventured into the music business, organizing the inaugural Hullabaloo Music Festival held on a July weekend in 2010. The track had planned to make this an annual event to compete with other summer music festivals. Hullabaloo attracted 78,000 people, but fell short of the more than 100,000 expected by the company. The company attributed this to the brutal heat, but others cited high ticket prices in a poor economy. The entertainment division lost more than $5 million in its first year, and the event was discontinued. As many as 1,400 horses can be housed in the stables at Churchill Downs. It was estimated that approximately 1,000 horses were being kept and trained at the time we were there. On Wednesday, June 22, 2011, an EF2 tornado hit the Louisville area, striking the stables and chapel at Churchill Downs at EF1 intensity. Several stables were badly damaged, as was the chapel. Over 200 horses had to be evacuated from the damaged stables and be relocated to other stables that were not damaged by the tornado. The tornado did not cause any damage to the twin spires or the clubhouse. On June 5, 1907, African-American jockey James Lee set a record that has never been beaten when he won the entire 6-race card at Churchill Downs. There are more than 1,000 wagering windows at the track. Approximately 20 to 25 million will be wagered at the track on Kentucky Derby Day. People also lay down their bets on twinspires.com and at simulcast outlets. Worldwide wagering on the Kentucky Derby exceeded 200 million in 2022. The winner's circle at Churchill Downs is an ornately decorated area of the infield where the Kentucky Derby trophy is presented to the winning owner, trainer, and jockey after the greatest 2 minutes in sports. It is only used once a year, on Kentucky Derby Day. Churchill Downs was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1986. Leaving Louisville, we took Interstate 64 west toward St. Louis. We stopped at a Cracker Barrel in St. Louis for lunch.
This is the Ohio River, if you didn't see it.
Built as a monument to westward expansion of the U.S., the Arch, commonly referred to as the Gateway to the West, is a National Historic Landmark in Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis, Missouri. It has become an internationally recognized symbol of St. Louis, as well as a popular tourist destination. The arch was designed by Finnish-American architect Eero Saarinen in 1947. Construction began on February 12th of 1963 and was completed on October 28, 1965 at an overall cost of $13 million. That's equivalent to about $90 million today. The monument opened to the public on June 10, 1967. It is located at the site of the founding of St. Louis on the west bank of the Mississippi River. Both the width and height of the arch are 630 feet. The arch is the tallest memorial in the United States and the tallest stainless steel monument in the world. The cross-sections of the arch's legs are equilateral triangles, narrowing from 54 feet per side at the bases to 17 feet per side at the top. Each wall consists of a stainless steel skin covering a sandwich of 2 carbon steel walls with reinforced concrete in the middle from ground level up to 300 feet, with carbon steel the rest of the way to the peak. The arch is hollow to accommodate a unique tram system that takes visitors to an observation deck at the top. The structural load is supported by a stressed skin design. Each leg is embedded in 23,570 tons of concrete, 44 feet thick and 60 feet deep. 20 feet of the foundation is in bedrock. The arch is resistant to earthquakes and is designed to sway up to 18 inches in either direction while withstanding winds up to 150 miles per hour. The structure weighs 38,898 tons. The 6.3 millimeter thick grade 304 stainless steel panels that cover the exterior of the arch account for 804 tons. This amount of stainless steel is the most used in any one project in history. The base of each leg at ground level had to have an engineering tolerance of 1/64th of an inch, or the 2 legs would not meet at the top. From St. Louis, we continued on to Kansas City, where we spent the evening at the Hampton Inn. On Sunday, we traveled from Kansas City to Burlington, Colorado. We stopped for lunch in Hays, Kansas. My granddaughter Lauren is studying nursing in Hays while working at local medical facilities. Since we were stopping at Thirsty's Brew Pub and Grill to eat, I sent her a quick text to see if she could join us for lunch. She had just received word that she would not be needed at work that day and thus had the afternoon free. It was great to see her.